So, I guess we are revisiting this topic already. We made a video about this same thing a few weeks ago, and now, because Frank Seravalli went on to Sportsnet 650, and had this to say about the Vancouver Canucks and the New York Rangers, we are talking about this again. What exactly was it that Seravalli said onto the Vancouver radio airwaves? Well, he says that one of the teams that has been all over JT Miller is the New York Rangers. We have indeed made this video before, but we kind of have to talk about this again, because now that it's being confirmed, or not even confirmed, but just alluded to by somebody in the mainstream media, especially on the Vancouver radio sphere, I do think there is a bigger conversation that we can have when it comes to JT Miller and any potential Rangers trades. Now, I'm going to preface this entire conversation by saying this is a tough one. And when it comes to what JT Miller is versus what he could be for any team that is acquiring him in a trade, there could be some sort of a difference there. And we'll get into that as we go along in this video. JT Miller is 28 years old, 6'1", 218, a center, winger who can play all forward positions pretty much. He's left-handed, he's good on the dot, he's making himself $5.25 million a season till the end of 2023, so he does have another year after this season. He's a guy who, playing for the Vancouver Canucks, is the top point guy on the team, with 38 points in 38 games played. He has been nothing short of spectacular during his time with the Vancouver Canucks, starting out his campaign with 72 points in 69 games in 2019-20, and over a point per game in the playoffs. Last year he fell off because everybody fell off on the Vancouver Canucks last year, but he still was one of the top guys, and this season, Miller has kind of gotten back to that form where he is consistently always on the score sheet, always driving play. He's got leadership qualities that really are unmatched by anybody else on the team when it comes to his desire to win. And, as Beyonce said, they're pretty irreplaceable, those kinds of qualities. You don't really have too many guys in the NHL, let alone in the Vancouver Canucks, who outwardly display that type of passion, while also being as skilled and productive as JT Miller can be. And so, I want to make this very clear right here. For Vancouver fans, this is not the Rangers fan base I'm talking to. For Vancouver fans, it's very understandable why we want a huge haul for Miller. This guy, proportionate to the rest of the players on our team, is very important, if not the most important player out there whose name is not Thatcher Demko. This guy's value to the team is super high. Therefore, any trade involving Miller would, for many Canucks fans, demand a very, very high price in return. This is why, if you go over onto the Vancouver Canucks subreddit and you see some of the suggestions that Canucks fans have for a Miller trade, it's, Miller for Lafreniere 1-for-1. It's Miller for Kakko and a first, or Miller for Kakko and Braden Schneider, and all this other stuff that New York fans are getting very, very pissed off about. I gotta say it right here. Miller is so valuable to Vancouver that any perceived trade that Canucks fans would be proposing would, more often than not, have a really crazy amount of value for the Rangers side too. Because I'll say this right here, the Canucks and their proposals they have on the subreddit, I think most of them are unrealistic and they're way too demanding. This thread that I'm pulling from was actually posted onto the Rangers subreddit, and the Rangers fans are all kind of looking at it and they're saying, wow, look at that. Canucks fans are delusional. They want Lafreniere for Miller? Are you kidding me? We're not trading away Lafreniere. Get out of your head, buddy. We're not trading away a first overall pick for what is essentially a one-year rental. And I think a lot of Canucks fans kind of need to hear that message as well, that yeah, you gotta look at the perspective here. Sure, Miller is the best player technically on the Canucks because he has the most points. That's not that bad of an argument to make, right? But just because he is the Vancouver Canucks' best player does not mean that the Canucks should automatically get the best assets of any other team that is trading for Miller, because if Miller goes to New York, is he the best player in New York? Is he the second best? Is he the third best? I don't really know. There's Adam Fox, there's Artemi Panarin, there's Mika Zibanejad, there's Chris Kreider, who has been exploding this year. Miller on Vancouver is a top 2 player on the team. Miller on New York is at best a top 4. You could maybe argue a top 3. And so that's why Rangers fans who are talking about the potential of reacquiring JT Miller, because you got to remember, they drafted this guy first and foremost all the way back in, 2011? Because Miller on the Canucks is so much more than Miller would be on the Rangers, there's a disparity here when you're trying to evaluate what a trade could look like. It's the old Chris Tanev to Toronto argument that everybody loved to talk about back in 2017. I think it was Brett Moroki on defense who really hammered that point home. I don't think the video is up on this channel anymore. That Tanev at the time to the Vancouver Canucks was so valuable that it made Canucks fans disproportionately and irrationally demanding when talking about the idea of a Chris Tanev trade, especially to Toronto. It's sort of the same here because Miller is that valuable to the Canucks. Now, what exactly do I think a trade could look like if we want to go realistic here? No, we're not trading away JT Miller for Alexis Lafreniere or Kakko, or a package that includes Alexis Lafreniere or Kakko. I get it, Miller is great, he produces, and he's cheap, and he's got another year left, but the Rangers are not giving up on Kakko or Lafreniere. Sorry, that's just not happening. A first-round pick, though? Yeah, absolutely. JT Miller, at the very minimum, is worth a first-round pick, especially if it's coming from New York. They're a good team, so if that first-round pick is, let's say they make the playoffs and they win a few rounds, it's like 23 plus or whatever. Yeah, that's the kind of first-round pick that I think is at the very least included in a trade package like this. Furthermore, and we actually hadn't discussed this at all yet, but it's been kind of public knowledge, not even public knowledge, but just kind of a floating idea around the NHL's media people that Miller would likely be in some conversations here. This isn't the first time we've made a video discussing the idea of a Miller trade, and because of that, it's a lot more difficult to get prime value for this guy. Automatically, if any GM is conversing with Rutherford or whoever the Canucks GM is going to be when they make a Miller trade, or if they make a Miller trade, they can just say, okay, well, we know you're selling this guy. We know you're talking to other teams about this guy, so we're not going to give you top dollar for this player. Why? Because we know he's an available asset. If we were trying to pry this guy away from you and you didn't want to get rid of him and you're trying so hard to keep him, then we would start to give more assets to you. But no, it's very public that you guys are, at the very least, exploring your trade options and talking to other teams, so we're not going to give you our entire 100% package. Here's an 80% package or a 75% package, a first-round pick, maybe another prospect like a Nils Lundqvist or something, and then either a roster replacement forward or a second-round pick. It would be a lot more than what the Canucks initially traded away for Miller back in the 2019 NHL Entry Draft Day 2, when they traded away Marek Mazanec, a third, I believe, and then a first-round pick that eventually became 20th overall or something that was sent to New Jersey in the Blake Coleman trade. This idea that you're going to get best for best, you're getting a Lafreniere or a Kakko, it's probably not going to go down. Even including a guy like a Nils Lundqvist in this kind of trade is kind of pushing it, in my opinion, when you discuss who the Canucks could get back if you're already including a first-round pick. So, I don't know. You gotta keep in mind, NHL trades and what players go for, it's never the same as what we evaluate them as fans. Playing be a GM mode and trying to make your fantasy trades, it's easy to just say, okay, not accepted, we'll add on a second. Okay, not accepted, we'll add on the third. Okay, not accepted, we'll add on a fourth. Or we'll trade a different guy instead to make this trade work. You gotta look at the real-life trades, man. Sure, rentals go for a lot. Blake Coleman, first-round pick. Barclay Goodrow, first-round pick. But the guys that are valuable tend to go for a lot less than we think they could. When Erik Karlsson was traded, I know the trade was pretty good in hindsight, but a lot of people didn't like that trade at the beginning. You have Jack Eichel, his trade was not really seen as that of the Buffalo Sabres getting maximum value, even though Tuch and Krebs are pretty good players. The only one that I can really think of that actually served a very good haul for the team that traded away the star player was the Matt Duchene trade, but that doesn't really count in the same way because that was a three-way trade, so it's kind of different. This is Miller and the Rangers, and when you think about it from both sides, there are some very differing points of views from it. So if you're a Rangers fan, talk to me in the comments. What is it that you would give up in a Miller trade? Because I can guarantee you, what a Rangers fan would be comfortable in giving up is going to be a lot different than what the Canucks fans would want in return. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing the disparity in the comment section below. So talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about this idea. The Canucks, Miller, apparently the Rangers won him. I hope you enjoyed this video. And Bye.